needs to watch their back.
This doesn't have to end in a fight, Tony.
You just started a war. Stay down. Final warning.
I could do this all day.
All right, I've run out of patience. On to roost!
Hey, everyone.
Right, so thankfully with this part now, this second half kind of sort of our BVS and Captain America Civil War compare and contrast special. Yeah, we're not gonna stay too long on Civil War simply because Civil War is a better movie. Like, I'm sorry, it's a better film, right? Chapter 1, background, right? So we stick with the same 5 chapters, right? In case you were wondering. Yeah, so background, chapter 1. This is the 13th film in the MCU. It's also the 3rd part of the Captain America film trilogy that I would make the argument is the most consistent trilogy in the MCU, at least in my opinion. Not saying it's the best. We could argue that the best, arguably is the Guardians trilogy, right? But like in terms of consistency, from film to film to film, yeah, I would say Captain America is, right? Because we started off with the sort of like pulpy, or not pulpy, Saturday matinee vibe of the first Avenger, the spy caper that was the Winter Soldier, and now this superhero mashup special, right? That's, as I said in the last video, Avengers 2.5, right? That's basically what it is, right? And again, somehow it works, right? But yeah, it still feels consistent from film to film to film, right? But yeah, as I said, 3rd part of that film trilogy, right? It kickstarted phase 3 of the MCU, right? Right after Ant-Man ended, phase 2. And of course, right after this, we had Doctor Strange, which we more than likely will be doing a retrospect review of, right? Even though we did talk about it when it came out back in 2016, right? On BSB, right? So it opens with a flashback to 1991. We are reintroduced to Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier. So he is pretty much programmed, if you will, to perform this assassination, right? He shoots at a moving car, and then the car crashes, right? And at this moment, we don't know who's in the car, but you see the license plate and you see New York on it, right? And what Bucky was sent to collect was this case of super soldier serum, right? And then we cut to present times now, and keep in mind this is right after the conclusion of Age of Ultron, where Tony Stark just went on the sabbatical basically, and Thor, flew back up because of reasons. Well, no, basically because he saw, glimpses of what will eventually become Ragnarok, right? Thor Ragnarok. I was confusing Ragnarok with the Dark World, right? But I think the events that basically led to Thor Ragnarok, right? But anyway, Cap is running the Avengers, right? And in this case, we see his team. So this is Black Widow, we see Falcon, we see Wanda Maximoff. We can't call her Scarlet Witches yet because, WandaVision ain't happened yet. And yeah, they're basically in Lagos now. And, again, going back to the comparison with BVS now. Yeah, the first big set piece takes place in an African, town, right? Well, in this case, it's a city, basically, right? So it's so funny, right? Just the parallels between films, right? But yeah, they go in after Rumlow, if you remember him, from Winter Soldier. We thought he was dead, but apparently he isn't, right?
Crossbones.
Yeah, Crossbones, right? Yeah. Yeah, we get this sweet action sequence. And, of course, I'm not going to get too much into detail into every single punch and kick and explosion, right? But yeah, the action sequence is dope. And here's the thing, compared to the Nairobi sequence in BVS and, is how in this case, right, we're seeing every hero in action. Everybody get the time to shine. You're seeing the skill sets. You're seeing what they could do, all that kind of stuff, right? Not literally Superman watching a man and spearing him through a wall, and that's all we see of him in that scene.
True.
You understand? I just being real, right? I just being real, whatever. Anyway, The scene ends where Rumlow activates his bombs. He had it strapped to his chest. Wanda shows up, so she tried to use her magic to kind of, encapsulate Rumlow, but like and she moved it away. She moved the bubble away, but then the explosion happened, and then it ended up like destroying part of a building. And then you learn that 11 Wakandans were there, right? And then this is where you see King T'Chaka for the first time, right? And he has concern. He brings up the whole concern that the United Nations have about the Avengers and how they are able to go to countries and do what they do, right? Even if it's about saving the world, right? Again, similar to what we saw in BVS, but it's done much better and it feels much more logical too. Yes, they had Avengers and Age of Ultron and other movies to back that's to build off of, right? But at the same time, again, just the idea of how much agency the Avengers have, they set that up very well, right? Meanwhile, now Tony is dealing with his issues, so he's still trying to process the grief, over the death of his parents. And then I forget, McGill, Alfred Woodard was there, right? And then there's a scene where she pops up and pretty much accused Tony of the Avengers killing her son because her son was there in Sokovia. He was one of the many victims of that of the end, the climax of that movie, right? Great setup. I love that. Great, right?
Yeah.
Chapter 2, storyline. So Tony shows up to the Avengers building. We see Thaddeus Ross here. He's the Secretary of State now. So he reminds them of all the damage and all the shit that they do with the previous movies. I also mentioned too, even the Winter Soldier with the helicarriers, landing, right? Falling from the sky, basically.
Again,
all that stuff.
As a simple, listen, there's a very, very simple factor. What I think is by far the main factor why this movie works so much better than BVS.
Time, yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm. You had films to back it up, yes.
Yeah, you had films to back it up. You had a lot of events. You get to know these characters.
That's right.
You get to know Tony. You get to know Steve. You get to know the dynamics. They make it work. They did the smart call of getting rid of Hulk and Thor because they would have fuck everything up. They would be too powerful. I still think how Thor is handled. Sorry, not how Thor is handled. How Hulk is handled in Age of Ultron was pretty dumb. However,
it was.
Whatever. But the point is that they just get these characters to work with each other and bounce off each other. And at no point. Another thing is that they flip the dynamics of both characters really well. So, Tony's supposed to be the whole maverick kind of thing.
Yeah,
but
he's the one who's take action. But
he's supposed to be the big maverick rebel kind of character. And yet he's the one who who's the one who trying to cater to this law, apparently. And then they have Steve is like, well, I don't have to trust the law. And because he now becomes a maverick because of what happened to him in Winter Soldier. And then you learn later why it is you shouldn't trust the government or whatever it is. And then now you learn later how that piece of information, which I think they did, in my humble opinion, is a masterful job. They make you forget that Bucky killed Tony Dad. And you learn later more. And they recontextualize that in the storyline because you forget. The story, they did a great job, a nice magic trick. It's a good show. It's a showmanship. They make you forget. That is great stuff because you're watching it since because that was a big reveal in Winter Soldier, right?
Yes.
Big reveal in Winter Soldier. Oh shit, Tony Dad murder that is implied to be Bucky. But they leave it open enough to make you think, well, it don't have to be Bucky necessarily. No. It's strongly implied and it's like, oh shit, right. And then Age of Ultron come and go and them have a whole scene talking to each other when they jump in the wood, And wait. I remember it crossed my mind watching, wait, did he tell Tony that Bucky killed him? What going on here? What going on with that? And then you forget, time pass, come back now, and it's like, oh shit, this is a big conceit. It's only until the end of this movie you forget, because they give enough misdirection, making it think, they go and have this big four-way jamboree against the Winter Soldiers, and it's going to be, Iron Man and Bucky and Black Panther and Tony, and Cap, all four of them go and fight against these Winter Soldiers, or some bullshit like that. No.
That's not happens at all.
And they give enough and they can follow all of it. That is the main point.
Yeah.
Again, Batman v Superman could have worked if they just, take away a couple spinning plates and have it flow a little better. There's a couple of, to me, a handful of rewrites, 2 or 3 rewrites could have made Batman v Superman work. But that's not the movie we got.
Yeah.
So it's like that. But this now is they rehaul. And this are the advantage of going after the fact. So I have no idea if I could prove this one way or the other. But I suspect they saw Batman v Superman and re-edited this film. right? They actually
you
was gonna have
know,
a couple.
but that's possible. Like
Yeah,
they see the
I
movie
would not
and
be
they like
surprised.
probably spend 2 weeks like just
No,
fine tuning
I would
editing
not be
and then
surprised.
just finalize
Yeah,
everything
exactly.
and put it out in
Exactly. But
theaters.
they had months. You could fix that editing in a month. They watch Batman Superman and say, watch now. This didn't work. They see what didn't work. They watch them fuck up this.
Yeah,
And they
yeah.
tell us, all right, like take out this to and tweak it just to have it flow a little better and have it cater thing. Because it really feel like but because it's same thing with Age of Ultron. Age of Ultron also felt like a kind of little bit of a fuck you to Man of Steel. Like they have a whole city mashing up, but
Mm-hmm,
they
mm-hmm.
make it a big deal to save people. And look at they saving people. And it's like, wow, that's already like I kind of done up a little rubbing it in a little bit. Same thing with this. It really feel like they tweak a handful of this movie, edited after the fact, because they had the advantage of coming after, and they fix. I would not be, I can't prove it, but I suspect because I find it was a little too like played into the audience a little
Yeah,
bit. Now.
yeah. Very, very neatly done, I must say. Yeah.
But that's how it is. That's the nature of the showmanship business. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing or something like that. But like that's the disadvantage of going first, right? Or unless you do something that the person coming after can't top, you're in trouble, right? That they make it. They make it work. And that's what they do with this movie. This movie flows so much better.
It
It really, really
does.
works. That opening sequence is great with the 1991 thing.
Yes,
Start
I love
strong,
that. Love that. Yeah.
goes well, and then and here's what I like about it. It's an Avengers 2.5 movie, but it's also a solid Captain America movie in terms of a Cap's arc.
That's what I
Great arc
love
for Cap.
about it so much. It
Comes back full
balances
circle.
the
And
two.
I was worried. I remember the time thinking two things. One, and when we were getting to the cameos, I thought because I know they was opening for Black Panther to bring in Black Panther, and I was worried that Black Panther not gonna have a great arc. And that Spider-Man gonna just kind of steal the thunder here because look, Spider-Man is a super popular character, and I was thinking that if they're bringing in Black Panther because they made a big deal out of Black Panther coming into this movie, so but to get Spider-Man and just kind of just shut him to the side would have been kind of weak for me. I remember that event. That was like one of the biggest events. To this day, that was one of the best Marvel moments. When Kevin Feige turned off the lights and say, that's so much society thing, I'm feeling that. And he turned off the lights and then the Civil War lights come back up.
Mm,
And then they introduced Black Panther for the first time when both Robert Downey and Chris Evans introduced them.
right.
And you see Shadow come out the first time, it's like, all right, they cook here. They absolutely cook with that. And then, they give Black Panther a really good arc in this, though.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
solid stuff, RIP to a goat, right?
Yeah,
Chadwick Boseman.
RIP to a real one, man. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But it just I just thought that's how you had to do this. There's in nature films you could be understanding in terms of who do what and wherever it is. But if Batman v Superman, if they just had a couple of movies just to light breathe a little bit now, and then we get this, I think we'd have received it so bad because you wouldn't have to do all that bullshit now. It's the classic 10 pounds of shit and 5 pound bag problem now.
Yeah,
It's too
yeah.
much nonsense.
Exactly.
It's too much.
And all this Justice League build up and
That's not
come on,
bullshit.
man.
Yeah, it's not nonsense. Because if they just say, okay, how come Superman acting like this and this? No, you answer it here. But no, they had to put everything in one movie, and it's a mess. A total
Yeah.
mess. But yeah, with this, totally work.
Yeah,
This was the 8th. This is the 16th film in the
13th,
franchise.
13th
13th
film.
film. Thank you. Right. Yeah, exactly. You have enough movies that just tell these stories. Because I know people who, to this day, I have people who, like, well, younger people I'd imagine, who completely confused with the MCU. And they can't follow, like, well, which movie I have to follow first? And how come I can make sense of this in the Avengers? Because they keep thinking it's separate conceits now, not realizing the MCU is one long thing. Right? And again, you have to be a younger person to probably suffer from this. I remember, like, talking to people online and saying, oh, they answer this in thought too, and they answer that in thing. But I was realized, all right. It's because a bunch of new people come into this and they're like, oh yeah, forget this bullshit going on since 2008. So you have a whole working, effectively functioning adult population who don't know anything about the MCU in that sense. And I'm like, oh no, right. I can imagine people being kind of confused if you don't watch these movies. You kind of have to watch all of them, to be fair.
Yeah.
Right. That which could work for or against. At the time, that was a massively good call. Because it's like you're mixing television and movies at the same time, but you're flipping it now. Usually the idea was prestige TV of TV feeling like movies, but like what if you do movies like TV? And it's like, yeah, you get, and they just put out the production. They have a real good like hype cycle going in. So the second whatever movie's done and you get a post credit scene, everybody in this start talking about it. People who don't know jump into the talk. They talk about it nerd friend shit, cycle back, and then you rinse and repeat. And yeah, it was a well-honed machine. Like I respect you around this time. And I still think this is the height of the MCU for me, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
It was a hype. In terms of hype, I don't think Infinity War necessarily, but I find this was it. This was like real crescendo of the MCU for me. Like I ain't getting better than this. I don't think so. Like it's still one of my favorite films in the franchise. Even though I put Infinity War a little above it.
Right,
but
right.
this was it. This was it. This
Right.
was it.
So compare now to the storyline that I rambled on about in the last video, with BVS. This one is just so simple and streamlined, right? So yes,
Yeah.
the Sokovia Accords are brought into the play. Of course, Cap is against it, and Iron Man is for it, right? And you'll see some people support Cap, and then the other people support Iron Man, right? And I had to mention too, right? I still to this day have an official Captain America Civil War T-shirt, right? That's the one where you see the star and you see like one half of it is Cap's face with the helmet on, and the next half is Iron Man with the helmet on, right?
Right.
I love that so much though, because yeah, at a point in time it was like you're either with team Cap or team Iron Man.
Right.
I was indifferent. I was like, okay, I just want to see both parties and how they deal with this, right? And one thing I love
I am
about this
so
show, right?
glad.
Let's stick with the storyline here, right? One thing I love though, and you see it play out later on in the show, right? Is how you understand where both Cap and Iron Man coming from. You get where they're coming from. Iron Man is still dealing with what it is, Alfred Woodard's character said about, his son dying in Sokovia, all the damage that took place. You understand where he's coming from. And then the personal stuff that he's going through. There's a great moment in Act 2 where he mentions how he and Pepper, taking a break, right? It's stuff like that. And then he didn't even bring up the stuff that happened to him in Iron Man 3. That's what I mentioned briefly. So yeah, and that all is great build up to, of course, the end of the climax of Avengers Endgame anyway, right? With Iron Man doing what it is he did, right? Yeah, Tony has been through the ringer, emotionally been through the ringer. So he just want to, he just doing this to make sure that everybody, could kind of function, but they don't bring any death or chaos, right? But of course, Cap is like, but listen, like all this evil out there in the world. Listen, I became Captain America during World War II. I fought Nazis. You don't understand why I had to deal with Winter Soldier. Look at what happened, Dread. Like the people I was working with, like
Yeah.
Hydra. You know what I mean? So you get where both parties are
And
coming from. It makes
this is
sense.
another post 9/11 aesthetic thing, right? Where the whole clearly is what they're reading into is the whole what you call it by the Patriot attack. If you know what the Patriot attack is, right? That was something that was like really early 9/11 Bush administration stuff.
Hmm.
The idea of that basically you had to kind of sign off all your rights to bullshit. Just it's the old adage of if you sacrifice freedom for security, you deserve neither. No? Right? That's the old adage. I think it's Benjamin Franklin say that. So that whole thing that clearly the Russos was playing into. And they just Russo just had the right script for the right time. It worked with Inter Soldier, and they built it on this in a really smart way, And they changed it from the comic because I'm not a big fan of the comic. I find the comic a little too convoluted. I mean, look, they had to sell a bunch of comics, so it's fine. But like, I was never a fan of that. But yeah, I like
Listen.
the
To
change.
this day, I've always felt threatened. Sorry, not threatened. I've always feel overwhelmed. Like I always wanted to get into them Civil War books, but I was like, but
Yeah,
so much books, Thread, and it connects to
the
other
comics.
issues from other characters. Like at where to start. So I never got into it. I just felt so overwhelmed by how big that story was, Thread.
Yeah, no, the comic. I find the comic was a bit of a mess, and then like one of the big reveals I absolutely hated. So, but this addresses all of these and fixes the problem. Most of the people who I am general agreement with prefer the movie over the comic. Like the comic real big and have a lot going on, but what they do with it and they make a lot of smart calls, making it more just streamlining the material, okay, that's simplified for the big screen. That's common sense. To me, that's just simple common sense. So that's how it is. So yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So a couple of things I want to mention before we get to chapter 3, right? Yeah, we are introduced to I should also mention to Rudy makes appearance, Vision is there as
right,
well, right? But yeah,
right,
we are introduced to Helmut Zemo, right? Played by the Inglorious
right,
Bastard himself, Daniel Bro, right? And one thing, I always
right,
like the idea of how they change up the Baron Zemo, right? Because I was never too
right.
familiar with the character from the comics, right? But
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
he
You know,
looked at the ad, right?
he's a popular enough character. I mean, amongst comic fans, like I know who he is, but I was never like, oh, I'm so mad that they change X, Y, and Z. And in fact, they build on him in the future Captain America stuff. So it's like, oh yeah, good. Like that's what they did.
Yeah.
I like what they did, and
And
I actually like his characterization. All things considered, because what you have to do with a character is build them in the world. Like,
mhm,
why is this person like this?
yeah.
Right? So if he's a modern person now, then okay, you have to do something with him, and why it is he the way it is. And then they come up with a new origin. Relative. I don't know if this was in the comic, but they come up with a good origin, and then they come up with a good conceit as to why he is or his effectively is his modus operandi going forward. that we see in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Yeah, solid stuff. Simple, keep it forward, and then make it a plotline.
Yeah, and I like how he's set up here where he going after he's trying to he gets the book, this red covered book with commands that he used to give the Winter Soldier, right? So yeah, he basically interrogate this Hydra agent just to get dread, and it's a great scene, huh? So last point I'll make, and then we'll move to chapter 3, right? So yeah, at Vienna now, where the Sokovia Accords are going to be ratified, right? This is where we are introduced to T'Challa, played by the late great, the Black All-Star himself, Chadwick Boseman, R.I.P. though.
Right.
So yeah, he's there, his father there, as the father doing the speech, bomb goes off, and the media said, oh, it's Bucky do it, because there's like this camera shot of it, right? But yeah, no surprise, everybody blaming Bucky for it, and of course, no surprise, T'Challa want to kill him, and of course, Cap being Cap, want to get at Bucky before everybody else gets at him, right? So now we get to preliminary matches, right? And compared to BVS now, we actually get some stellar action sequences. We're not like just waiting for Superman to do things while Batman going around, trying to steal kryptonite and shit, right? Things are happening in this movie, and I love that, right? So for one thing, Cap, the moment where Cap meets Bucky at this apartment, it's in Bucharest, right? Great scene, right? Special Forces team coming in, go to them kicking ass.
Yeah, and Bucky going for the kill, and he just trying to save their ass.
Yeah, love that, right? But dog, I will never forget see this for the first time, right? It's when Bucky jump, and then he go on the roof to the next building, right? When Black Panther make his official introduction in the suit, audience cheered. I saw this in IMAX, so I cheered, the whole audience cheered. We went nuts over this. It just looks so badass,
it looked
right?
Great. It's still probably the best suit on live action, in my opinion.
Agreed.
This is the best looking suit.
Yeah. And listen, agree to disagree. After this, we get like this foot chase sequence, right? And this leads to one of the most goated moments, I will say, in comic book history, right? This is where, for me, this is the moment, agree to disagree, goated moment, where Bucky pull a bike and push the driver off, and then he leap in the air with the bike in the air and come down it. I replayed that back like twice, like, how the fuck did do that?
Oh god.
And
that's good style over
what
substance.
The fuck, what is this?
Yeah, that's good style over substance stuff. Yeah, there's all these little crowd pleasing moments that make it work.
Yeah.
I remember this. They hold it. I watched this first time I saw it. It was in South Park.
All right.
And that was for the critics, like a critic screening. It was a super early screening that I had to go to at the time. Just again, the early reports, if it good, we had, at the time I was like, to be fair, I was kind of invested in making sure these Marvel products come out good, and you get a good hype cycle going for it, right? But yeah, this as it is. This was, I remember really enjoying it on the big screen. I was like, all right, I'll go and see this in IMAX. It's that vibe. So it's that.
Yeah. So from this point, you now start to see the cracks being made in the foundation of the Avengers, right? Because War Machine come and basically just tell Cap, Bucky, and Black Panther to stand down, because the cops come, they get arrested, right? And then they sent to, I believe it's the CIA building, right? Because we see Everett Ross, who's played by, we boy Martin Freeman, right? The first time we see him, and I think like the only the other times you see him is in the Black Panther movies, right? Alone, if I'm not mistaken.
And something else. Was he in something else?
I'm trying to remember, probably Infinity War,
No. He wasn't in wasn't he in Thing? He was in that crap. What do you call it?
Not Secret Division.
Secret Division, yeah.
He was in that? Okay.
I think he was in that. He was in that. Yeah.
All right. I clean forget that, right? I mean, because it's Secret Division.
I think he was replaced.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, right. So Bucky's detained. And I like, how Zemo move here, Dread, because he showed up as one of the doctors, and he just like nobody know who he is, but you see like there's a moment where Cap just watching the screen like some off, right? And then Zemo friend had this this EMP bomb set off elsewhere, and that just caused a blackout, and that's where Zemo pull out the book and then do the commands, and then Bucky break out.
So watching it at the time, I was wondering how this guy doing all of this, and then to find out later, in Captain America and Winter Soldier, he's very wealthy, That's why he's doing all of this.
Oh, Zemo's
He-
very wealthy. Okay, I
yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah, exactly. Remember, yeah, he's like this wealthy aristocrat. Effectively. He's
No,
a baron.
no, well, in this, well, what they say here, he worked with Sokovia
No, he's a,
intelligence, so he's a
exactly.
soldier
No,
kind of.
that's his career. That's his career. His career in the military, but that's before. That's sorry. That's
Okay.
after. But
After.
he's born this aristocrat effectively, and he have a lot of money. I was wondering how he moving about. Like he's supposed to be the smart soldier, and he loses his family, but he's supposed to be like this wealthy aristocrat after. Though.
Right.
And it's not a retcon because like he's literally a baron. And I was like, all right, so that's how he pulling off all of this.
Yeah, like how you get the bomb in the first place. And
Yeah, how he's
all
doing
that
all of
stuff.
this. And his thing. But like to be fair, like this is one of those things that felt like a stretch in terms of the plan. Although I didn't have a big problem with it because of the final thing, like the final thing, what he was planning to do. It made perfect sense why the Avengers would come there anyway. Like given that he gave up enough of the plan to attract them to that last location, even though it might be a little bit of a stretch. It was like who doing what and why thing. But ideas over intended execution. You could have the same equal ideas, but the intended execution, how you edit it and how you make it flow in terms of the audience, the hard logic don't really matter. So it's not a problem for me now. I didn't have a problem with it at all for the most part. But some people like to act this was just as bad as Batman v Superman. I do not think so at all. I think this works a lot better.
Speaking of Batman v Superman, right? So the whole so actually right. So there's a moment, no, great moment actually, right? I forgot this was in the movie, right? This is where you see Steve and Tony talking about what going on with Bucky, and then they started talking about the Accords even more, right? Now, again, is a friendly. Now, what I love about this is like this friendly-ish kind of quarrel, right? Like you could tell they're not the best of friends, right? But they have this bond, right? They work with each other, they know each other well, right? So they quarreling with each other, but it's not like yelling at each other. But you could tell they both kind of heated over what's going on, right? But even in that moment, you understand where both men come from in terms of the Accords and what it means, right? It is much better than tell me, do you bleed?
Right.
But point is,
So
the point is, Ricardo, is that the first time Batman and Superman actually meet, they just talk for like about 30 seconds and that's it, nobody gets an idea of who the other person is, It's just that earlier scene with the event where you see Bruce talking down to Clark and vice versa. That was a bit of it, but there was no real understanding as to who each other is. It's just, oh, you doing this, and oh, you doing that, blah. And that's supposed to make me care about this upcoming fight. At least in this one here with Steve and Tony, you understand where they come from. So when they eventually fight, and I'll get to that later on, it feels more tragic than anything else. That's why that fight works so well. Yeah.
And again, they built it up.
They built it up.
Movies to build up. That's it. Simple answer.
Exactly. Moving on. So yeah, we get to the next preliminary match now where Bucky just start kicking everybody ass. And then we get another goated moment where Bucky jump into this chopper and he flying off, and then Cap hold on to one of the landing skids and he holding on to one of the metal bars at the edge of the roof. And listen, I know this was for the ladies, This was for the ladies, right? Him flexing the right muscle. I was like, all right.
Thank you, Chris Evans, for telling me to go to the gym, right?
I know, but listen, what first time see that in the audience, we went nuts over that,
Yeah, that's hard.
And when you have Henry Jackman's music in the background, which, by the way, yes, is a much better score than what we get from Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL, right? Where that score for BVS was just hammering over the head and making you feel like, oh my god, this is so bad and this is so wrong and I must feel bad about the world because Batman is fighting Superman. No, it's like, yes, what's going on here with Bucky and Cap and Iron Man is serious, but there's still there's still moments of heroism. There's still moments of hope that you get, and you get that in that score. But yeah, that moment with Cap and the chopper though, that is a goated moment. But again, him flexing that muscle is like, yeah, we know why it's for the ladies, right? And yeah, even with all that, right? The chopper falls into this lake and Cap saves Bucky, right? It was like he just leave him to die, right? Because Bucky is best friends and all that good shit, right? Then we get the full version of the post-credit scene from Ant-Man now, where you see Bucky handcuffed now, or I should say, Bucky was still handcuffed, sorry, and Cap and Falcon talking, and then the post-credit scene, ended with him saying, I know a guy. But in this version, you see the full scene play out, right? Because that's where Bucky tell them about, there was these other Winter Soldiers, and I stole the serum to make them stronger, right? Now going back to BVS. That montage is darker, like very dark, but is not to the point of beating you over the head and making you feel like the world has gone to shit dread. Like, yes, you understand how grim the situation is, but it never lose sight of what the movie is about. It never lose sight that, yes, people come here to watch, to have a fun time watching the movie, right? But yes, this moment is intense and is serious and absolutely works, right? Again, there's right ways to do dark, and there's a wrong way to do dark, right? Or there's wrong ways to do dark, right? But anyway, one thing about the show that I really admire in retrospect though is like in the first half how you don't see Tony in the suit, right? Because like when Bucky escaped, the only moment you really see with the suit was when he like activated the watch and then you see the glove. And he using that now, like that's as much as you see of Iron Man at this point, right? But put up in that for now, right? And at least there's a reason why and it's justified why Tony does not want to put on the Iron Man suit, why he does not, why he's for the Sokovia Accords, right? That's much better than seeing Superman go through existential crisis, throughout 2/3 of the
Again,
movie before the fight even
again,
starts.
the reason why this works is because we have 3 Iron Man movies. One Iron Man movie was dedicated entirely to Iron Man having a stress-induced trauma because of a almost getting nuked in space,
Yeah.
right, from Avengers.
Mhm.
That is it, That is it. That is it. All they had to do is just have if they just had one extra Man of Steel movie, we would have been fine. I think we would have been fine. One. There's
Agreed.
one Man of Steel movie just justifying Superman's place in the world, understanding his place in the world properly. It would have worked. Not just a quick montage in the beginning, a 5-minute montage. That ain't gonna work.
Yeah. Now, let me talk about Spider-Man for a little bit, right? Before we get to the centerpiece of the movie, right? Now I can understand some people saying that, oh, how his character feels shoehorned in the movie, right? In particular with Tony pretty much recruiting him to help him, take down Cap, right? But to be fair, they kind of justify it a bit in the actual like airport scene, right? The idea wasn't to kill Cap and the others, it was just to kind of subdue them because they had 36 hours. It's just like, all right, like I just need as much muscle as I could get, right?
That scene with him meeting him in Queens always felt like it was a kind of clumsy chopping scene, and I feel like they cut stuff.
Yeah, like I feel like again, like why would you go out your way to recruit him? He's inexperienced, right? But again,
Right,
understanding nature things, it's Marvel Studios trying to bring Spider-Man into the fold. Okay, whatever, right? But I felt like
Right.
just minor nitpick, they could have just justify their first interaction a little bit better, right? But I will
Right.
say though, compared to Wonder Woman and BVS now, we are not
Yeah, God.
teased
Yeah,
throughout the movie as to whether
yeah,
will Peter Parker
yeah,
put on the Spider-Man suit? Will he?
yeah,
Oh
that's
no
not
no no
happening.
no. We know this already. We set this up early on, right? Good. Hawkeye pops up. He actually saves Wanda because she's in a safe
Right.
house with Vision. I actually love the scene actually, right?
Yeah.
Where Wanda use she magic to slam Vision down these floors. I love that scene
Right.
though, like especially like you see Vision goes on his knees and then he just being slammed down. I love that, right? But we had to talk about that airport flight scene, right? So before I
Right.
forget, right? If you were to watch the IMAX version of the movie, right, like digitally, that is the one scene that shows in full screen. Everything else is just
Right.
widescreen. But that whole entire sequence is full screen, right? And I'll confess,
Yeah.
this was the reason why I had to see this in IMAX.
Yeah, it
This
looked
is the
great.
centerpiece of the movie.
It looked great, but what it did again, this is the trick between Marvel and again where other people just kind of miss the point. They understand how to control tone because you have a set of people who just like, look, this is for a mainstream audience. It's like, yeah, the nerds go enjoy it, but not for the nerds. If the nerds only like it, these won't make millions of dollars or billions of dollars, close to billions every time, right?
Thank you.
The trick is to have an audience and have a mainstream audience that caters to that family conceit. And yeah, this is what like you don't want to take it seriously. You gotta take this the fight seriously, but
No,
the
no,
fight
no.
was basically a slightly more serious version of the Anchorman fight, right? Like it's that.
Exactly,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, they have this working conceit and make it a lot more intelligent in terms of like setting the conceit and then justifying it. And then if you want it serious, you get that later. And
Yeah.
they do a good job with that. And I thought, you understand why the characters pulling the punches kind of, but then somebody could have died. But then other people say, well, Rhodey should have actually died in the scene. I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe that might have worked. to make it to get serious. Like, the whole point is that Tony kind of pulling his punches and he just want to, relatively be harmless and still want to pull his punches. But if he wanted to get serious, he could have,
Right.
but maybe not. And then he underestimated Wanda. And they write it funny enough, but like the hard logic of it will fall apart. This sequence has easily still to this day probably one of my favorite Marvel visuals ever. Which is
hold it. I think I know what it is, right? But when I get into the fight, which I'll do right now, we're still in the preliminary fights, folks.
Right.
Yeah, you'll bring it up, right? So this is where we finally get to see Team Cap and Team Iron Man, right? So on
Right.
Cap's side, you've seen Hawkeye, you've seen Wanda, you've seen Bucky, Falcon. Ant-Man is brought in now. I like how he's worked into his story, right? Because Falcon knew a guy, right? Duh, right?
Right.
So as far as Team Iron Man now, you've seen War Machine, Black Panther, Black Widow, Vision, and then on the ruse, right? So Spider-Man pop up, right? Yes, it was spoiling the trailer, but the audience cheer, I cheer, right? Whatever, right?
Yeah, it's so good here.
But listen, I'm not gonna spoil every moment.
Here's another thing too. Here's another thing too, D, because what is spoiled doesn't really matter to the consequence of the story, because what was actually revealed later is way better. So like Spider-Man being in this is not a spoil, that's just the hype.
Right.
Because his relevance to the story is not super relevant. He's just there. Just to see Spider-Man there. And there's a big hype up thing of, we get back Spider-Man, blah blah blah. People want the Spider-Man for how long. That's it.
Exactly. And what I love about this scene, right? Like, even though this is not the main event, right? What I love about this scene in general, right, is that at this point in time, it really kind of comes down to just friends squabbling. Friends who just have this disagreement. And in Iron Man's defense, it's not like he's trying to kill them. It's just like, I just had to bring all they down, I had to subdue all they, I had to send all they back to Ross because all they being a problem, right? So they're not trying to kill each other, right? But that's what makes the moment with War Machine stand out even more, right? Because he almost died, right? In all this debacle, right? But anyway, so 4 things I could say about the scene, right? So going back to, what I said with Batman, Superman, the whole do you bleed bullshit, right? Like, if it was better written, right? This is Monday morning quarterback and they're doing here, right? At that exact moment, instead of the whole stay down, do you bleed bullshit, they could have just fight for a little bit. And then one of them, like Superman, fly out or whatever. Nope. They just, do you bleed? You're about to.
They can't fight for a little bit because it's a fucking normal human. Like, that's the problem. That's the problem with the whole Batman versus Superman thing, is that, sorry to say it, but, no amount of Tibetan monks and prep time going to save you against Batman properly. You had to come up with an incredible contrivance, not only for them to fight, but for them to be equal. I always thought that was bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, if it really came up with a good way to, like, it could come up with a good way to have a fight, but mostly fights are shit.
Yeah.
Mostly fights is like, there's some lame bullshit. Sorry to say this is always be a lame contrivance. Batman and Superman fighting is some contrivance. In this, you don't have to like it, and I think this feels like contrivance, but look, you had to have a movie, blah, blah, blah. But in this, it at least gives you an illusion of it being more naturalistic.
Right.
Again, it's just, listen, this is purely an argument from showmanship, not logic, right? It's just how to make it feel as if it works better. And Batman v Superman, I just think complete fail at doing that.
Exactly. Now why I bring this up too, again, Monday morning quarterbacking, is that, look at the title, Civil War. We do have to wait until the climax of the movie or near the end of the second act or into the third act to see the Civil War. We're getting it right now in the middle of the goddamn movie. That's what I'm saying. If they had thought it out better, Superman and Batman could have a little squabble, some little teaser, if you will, of what to expect. Think of it like, say, like a wrestling match, right? Like the two combatants before, WrestleMania or some big people.
Yeah, they rough up each
other a little bit or something, right? You get the audience hyped up. It's like, nope, whatever, right? Second thing, this scene still holds up. It is a comic book scene come to life. It is a Super Smash Brothers scene with superheroes come to life, right? It is goated, right? Thirdly, unlike all the action sequences in BVS, this scene does not take itself seriously. Yes, you have the moment with Rhodey, right? But that's near the end of the scene, right? But other than that, this is geeky comic book fun. It has great quips. The one-liners in this I love. I know people have the issues with Marvel one-liners, but the one-liners work too. Like, I love, where you from? Queens, Brooklyn. I fuck with that. That's great. The combat is great. The skill set's great. Visual effects, great. And just the showcase of the skills. I love that, right? Fourth and final thing, agree to disagree. Giant Man is the MVP in this whole scene. that
Right, great.
reveal of Ant-Man turning into Giant Man.
Yeah, great.
Even when I saw it back in 2016, I was like, that is great. That is great. I cheered.
Mhm.
Best thing Ant-Man ever do. I don't care if he
Yeah.
did it in Quantumania. I don't care about that shit. But when he became Giant Man for the first time, I love how he said that like I tried before. I black out, you know. I don't know if it's gonna happen, but let me just try it here now. But when he did that, boy, I was like, dog, that is so incredibly good, right? But I love that, right? A last point I'm gonna make, right? And yet, with all that stuff, right, it does not take away from the seriousness of the divide that is happening between the Avengers, right? Because, yeah, you know, War Machine is shut down, right? But the irony of it
Right.
all now is that, yeah, War Machine was going after the Quinjet where Cap and Bucky was, right?
Right.
But Vision is the one, well I should say, yeah,
It was
Falcon,
Falcon, right? Yeah.
yeah, Falcon was behind him. War Machine was
Right.
supposed to take down Falcon, right? But yeah, Vision fired his beam and it hit War Machine. That's the
Right.
irony. Vision is the one who took down War Machine. I love
Right.
that. So that even with all the hilariosity and all the fun you're having, there's still seriousness that's going on. It's best friends fight each other. And yeah, who knows who else could have gotten wiped out in that sequence, right? Yeah, this scene, fantastic. One of the best scenes, one of the best sequences, I would say, ever put to screen, in my opinion, as far as comic book movies go, right? But yeah, Ricardo, your quick take on the airport fight scene.
Yeah, great fight. The thing, what I like about it, they did the Spider-Man thing where he does, instead of, I love how he does move in this. Like, you actually have him moving better than even the other movies where he using everything by momentum and like leverage and thing and that kind of stuff. And him fighting, what do you call it? Both Cap
Yeah,
and, sorry, Falcon and
he was
Bucky.
going after Falcon and Bucky. Yeah,
Right, a great like comedy routine,
yeah, the
double
quips,
act
boy.
because
I love the quips
Falcon
of this stuff.
Falcon Royal still hated on Bucky throughout this movie, and he don't like Bucky head at all, which funny. Like when tell him to move the seat, and he said no, that funny
Yeah.
stuff like that, right? But yeah, I think they make that work. As I say, my personal favorite visual in all of probably amongst all of the MCU, but it's pretty high up. Ant-Man being small and using Hawkeye's arrows to go through Tony's arms.
Oh yeah, that was
And
great. And
it's him,
you see the
yeah, it's him
inside
flying.
of Iron Man's armor.
Yeah,
Hoss,
yeah,
I
but
watched. I was like, Hoss,
I
this is
just find
so
that shot.
dreaded. This is so
I just find
dreaded.
that shot. Yeah, that's find that shot with him going through the fingers, and you see the what's called it by the rack focus, now the shallow depth of field stuff,
Yeah.
and him running up the arm, and that whole I find that sequence look great. I seen all the action and all the other characters fighting in the background with all of that going on. I was like, that's a top 10 scene for me. That
Yeah.
looked great.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
What else, boy? Oh yeah, right. Yeah. Just all the fights great. Black Panther and Hunter down Bucky too. They working Black Panther and Hawkeye. They had a funny line where he say, "I don't care." That's
Yeah,
funny.
I don't care.
Yeah, and then the ending of the fight is good. Where Black Widow decided to switch sides now. It's like, all right, cool. That worked for what it was. And it switched. It got off guard with what was going on because the whole Winter Soldier thing. She knew the truth behind all of that. Now it's like, oh yeah, right. She would be aware of all of that nonsense now. With what Zemo was up to, so they had to stop him now. I dug the hell out of all of this. It worked.
Yeah, right. So before we get to the main event, right? So the aftermath of this moment now is that Wanda, Hawkeye, Ant-Man, and Falcon they put prisoner in the raft. This is the first time that we see it. This is his supermax prison that's underwater. Basically, that's what Ross runs, right? Yeah, and Cap and Bucky head to Siberia because Bucky told them that Zemo know the base where all the other Winter Soldiers are, and then Tony finds out who Zemo actually is and all that kind of stuff, right? And yeah, and there's a great moment where Tony admit to Falcon that, yeah, I was wrong. I didn't know what was going on because he now found out about, it wasn't Bucky that caused the bombing in the first place, right? So yeah, he just asks him like, listen, as a friend, just let me know where Cap going. I promise I can tell Ross, right? And yeah, Falcon tell him where he is and then he leave, right? And there's this great moment where, the chopper goes off. And then you see Iron Man like leaves the chopper in the suit and flies off, right?
Yeah.
And then right underneath, you see
a cool design,
you see a Quinjet, the suit and how it looked. And yet right underneath now you see a Quinjet now, and this Black Panther, he following Iron Man too. I love that. That's a great moment, right? So now we get to the main event now. So Cap and Bucky arrive at the base, Iron Man run into both of them, Black Panther like silently following them, right? And then Zemo there, and then he revealed the master plan, right? And compared to friggin' Lex Luthor, this plan is incredibly Simple. So I love how it started up
Here's
where
the plan. A lot of people like nitpick this plan to say, well, it don't make any sense and how it come together. But my attitude is that no, he was just kind of rolling with the punches with the plan. You know, he didn't
yeah,
have to work out like that, right? Compared to Lex Luthor, Lex Luthor's plan had to work out like that. That's the difference.
exactly. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. So basically, the Winter Soldiers were already dead. I forgot about that. That's actually a
Right.
great reveal, because
I
in
thought
my
that
head
was
I
a
was like,
great
wait,
twist.
the Winter Soldiers came and they fought, but it's like, no, they were already
Nope.
dead, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
And what I
Yeah,
love
yeah, yeah.
is that
I thought that was a great twist
yeah,
because you really again you already they set things up and they made even me thinking that for a second
yeah,
like oh all of them they gonna be Zemo using it with the soldiers like a small army or something like that. Nope.
yeah.
Yeah, you find out Zemo's ultimate intention to this end game now. It's like oh yeah I just don't want no more Windows, want no more super soldiers. Period. I'm like
Yeah.
oh that real true.
I love
Yeah.
that he finds this out as he reaches it. It's like, yeah, they dead, so whatever, right? But yeah, the real plan basically was to destroy the Avengers from the inside, right?
Right.
No lie, when I first saw that reveal of that master plan, that blew my mind. That this one guy, this one non-Avenger character, just figure out a way to just split the team in two, that blew my mind, right? And it is how he do it, boy. And keep in mind, folks,
You know what it did? You want to play what I would argue? It did the Bin Laden thing. So a lot of people argue that how Bin Laden didn't think that his plan would be as successful as it was.
Mm,
Like he didn't know. I don't think Bin Laden knew that the planes would like break down all the buildings now. It just
right.
hit the buildings and that would be it. That's the terror. But he didn't know that all of that shit would have happened now. That's what I suspect. A lot of people kind of argue that this is general consensus. I get into conspiracy theory thing about that. And that's how this feels. It's like a plan. You had a plan. It would do something, but he didn't think it would like. Oh shit! This was way worse than like the situation was a bigger powder keg than he thought it was. And yeah, that's how it just melted down completely now. And it worked because yeah, Tony murder. And like we are right. Cap did not tell Tony about Bucky.
That's right.
Truth,
Yeah.
And I thought such a great you forget.
Yes.
That's the thing. You remember, then they make you forget, and then they distract you enough to bring it back. Good showmanship is like a good magic trick. Right? You
and
forget,
about that scene,
you bring it back.
and about that scene, right? Keep in mind, folks, no dream sequence, no vision,
bullshit.
nobody coming from the future and saying you were right, blah blah blah. No.
Here's the thing: they already do that with the Mind Stone in a previous movie.
All right. Yes. Or Age of Ultron, right? Yeah.
Ideas and intent over execution. Come on.
Listen, right? Baby, right? But yeah, no dream sequence, right? It's just a video. You show. I love how the video is shown here because it would have been implied that Howard Stark died, right? But then they cut to the mother who was still in the car, and if this was a Zack Snyder movie, we would have seen she collect the headshots. Like no, camera just pans up, blow, bullet. That's it, right? And that is what trips off Tony.
Yeah.
And then
no, but that part is a good move. But when Tony, I find it's one of Robert Downey Jr.'s really like one of his best acting moments.
Of course,
when he said, "What is this?" When he's like, he look up at the tape and
what's
like,
this?
"What is this?"
Yeah, what's this?
And you see the date, And you see the date. I'm like, "Oh shit, it is." Like this real hard. It's a great moment.
And then he asks Cap if he knew about it, and Cap say, "Yeah, he did." And that's when we get the main event, right? And this is where the Civil War reaches its climax. We see Cap and Iron Man just duking it out, right? For Bucky's life and his death too, right? And unlike the BVS fight, both Iron Man and Cap are evenly matched. There's no one man getting the ass washed and getting swung around. No, like when Cap get hit, he pick himself back up. He hit Iron Man back and forth.
Right.
The evenly matched thread, even though logically, one man, like Iron Man could have killed, Cap with his powers, and Cap could have killed, Iron Man with the shield. But no, they were evenly matched.
Yeah, no, this is one of those things that people just have a debate about. Like, so I do have a big problem with this, but the whole basically, how come the suits seem unequal? Like, some suits are real powerful, other suits not so much. My attitude is, well, it's different suits. So the suit he was fighting with is a helicopter suit. That suit weak, relatively, right? Even though he could have, but he should have been able to beat them, but he didn't have all the accoutrements or whatever it is now. Mm-hmm. We know that. Like, so I thought that was reasonably well established, and I don't have a big problem with that. Again,
neither me.
Ideas over execution is not a big deal in terms of the logic of it.
Yeah. And to me, why this fight works too is just how heartbreaking it is, Jed, because you're seeing their friendship just dissolve right in front of your eyes, Jed, right? And while all this is going on, Black Panther confronts Zemo. I forgot that Zemo tried to kill himself because he kind of make the reveal of what happened when he family got
Right.
killed. But Black
Yeah.
Panther pretty much stop him and say, well, I forget what he say, but that's basically like, this is not your time to die, right? But I love
Right.
from a character building perspective where Black Panther is like, listen,
Right.
everybody,
Give him up.
being consumed by anger, being consumed by hate and stuff like that. I'm not gonna go through that. Even though what happened to my father happened, right? I love that.
Right.
That's so great, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean,
Simple solid arc that works. A good first arc.
yeah,
Because like it's almost like it's an origin story, and then they went on and just give him another arc that's just as important in his own movie.
That's
which
right.
is wild to me. That's like,
Yeah.
all right, they cooked here though. They
And-
cooked in both examples.
yeah, and in retrospect, if Zemo didn't die, we wouldn't see him in that club scene in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, man. I mean,
Right.
so yeah, I mean, I'm glad he survived this, right? I'm glad he survived this, right? Even though what he did was all sorts of fucked up, right? But yeah, I'm not gonna get into all the details of the fight though. But yeah, Bucky loses his arm, and Cap stops the fight. Compared to Martha, you gotta save.
Yeah,
No, Cap was about to kill. Like he realized that he would have killed Iron Man, right? Him out here because he used his shield to break the arc reactor, right? I.e. Iron Man's heart, right? He hit him once. If he had done it again, that probably would have killed Tony, But he stops after that first time, Shred.
Yeah.
He catches up.
But
Like,
they
I can't
They
do
had one
this.
part where he used he mash up Bucky
Yeah.
It's a great moment where he that part is showing the trailer where they double team him.
Ooh,
part.
I
And
get
he's just straight-
chills watching that,
That shot straight from the comic. They make it work.
Yeah.
But like the scene I like is, and then our people complain about how well Friday could have take Cap the entire time. But I get the sense that Tony again didn't think about it. It's more like, oh, it's just a suggestion by Friday.
Or
So you,
adapt to Cap's fighting style. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole scan Cap fighting style thing, and then he started finally do it. So he just basically let Friday take over.
Yeah.
But like Tony's the kind of guy that don't do that unless he really like in a desperate situation.
That's right.
So that's why I get it again. Just it's how to deliver the information. Don't have to be perfect logic. It's still magic bullshit, but it's more about all right. You just have to put it out and just tell a story and then to move the story forward. Again, simple.
Exactly. And last point I'll make before I get to the aftermath, right? There's a truly powerful moment that I forget was in this movie, where Iron Man tell Cap, "You don't deserve that shield. My father made that shield," and then Cap just threw the shield onto the floor and walk away. Boy, that speaks volumes, Jed. That is such a brilliant scene, Jed. Like, I stopped the show, I was like, wow, boy. Like, this scene, Jed, that moment just says so much about their dynamic, though. I absolutely love this, right? But yeah, Ricardo, before I get to the aftermath and wrap things up, yeah, your thoughts on the fight, the main event.
Yeah, great fight. Again, generally emotional. It get dark. It get, and what I like about it, even though it's like a supposedly big premise, is a surprisingly personal story.
Yes.
That's why it works. It's like,
Yeah.
they make it personal. They made it. Why it worked too is also they made it where they compromise Cap. Cap get compromised in a totally understandable way. Because everybody around him dying. They play with the whole. You know what they do really well is with the whole when Peggy Carter died.
Yes.
And they do the same speech thing. You move line, and then they recontextualize it by having Sharon Carter say it. And like, yeah, okay. That's like a good way to put that in. That's a smart way to put that in. Simple, really works. Good as a working story. And I dug the hell out of that for what it was. And yeah, they make it work. It's a solid story. I really like this movie. This was I find it real like okay, the MCU untouchable now until the end of this. Like and yeah, it was pretty much like smooth sailing until in Endgame. Pretty much every movie was making $1 billion after this until Endgame. It was wild. It was kind of wild. It was a good time. Good time to be a Marvel fan.
Right. So let's wrap things up now with the aftermath, right? And no, I'm not going to talk about the post credit or mid credit scenes. They work, but I'm not going to mention them here, right? Just for the sake of time. Yeah. So Zemo's arrested. You see Everett Ross again. Rudy gets like these mechanical supports for his legs. Courtesy of Tony. I actually forgot, but Stanley make a cameo. He played this FedEx guy. This nice little joke where Tony stank. Yeah, that was funny. That was funny, right? And yeah, in the letter, it's a letter and a phone from Cap. You won't see the phone till Infinity War, but yeah, the letter is basically Cap pretty much apologizing, like, yeah, I should tell you about your mom. I'm sorry, but it's because of my ideals of what I believed and all that kind of stuff. It make a lot of sense, right? I just love that final moment where you just see Cap the aftermath, sorry, of him breaking into the raft and walking towards Hawkeye. Yeah,
Right.
so basically he comes to free his friends, right? And just paraphrasing, he's like, yeah, well, if you ever need me, yeah, just call me. I love that.
Right.
That's how you rectify, a fight between friends, man. It's like, listen, like I will be the bigger man. I'll apologize. I understand what you went through, but listen, like it don't have to be water under the bridge, right? But listen, we still have a fight. The world still needs saving us. So if you need my help, just call me. I love that. I love that. Perfect, right? So that's to wrap things up, right? I'll just make this argument here, right? I'll use this to close things off, right? So people could argue that this movie had the advantage of having other movies build things up, right? But this whole idea of Bucky killing Tony's mother wasn't introduced wasn't it was kind of maybe hinted at probably, right? But it's really in this movie that you got the sense of that, they brought that in. And
Right.
I'm saying this, right,
No,
is
no,
that
again, in Winter Soldier,
uh
it was revealed that all they say is that we know Hydra killed Tony Father. That
Howard,
was
yeah.
Yeah, Howard. Because we don't know. Because remember originally they said it was an accident, a car accident, and it's like, oh well, well, we don't have any sense of the mother. We just know he died. But then when he in this movie, when we see the both of them was on the trip, this is 92 of them dead then. I would. And it's like, oh shit, I saw the mother dead. The mother dead the same night. So that's implied that Bucky killed the two of them. That was it. But then with the Solar, it was implied, and then Cap kept it secret because he wanted to find Bucky and sort it out long before any of this could have blown over. That's why he keep it quiet.
Exactly.
But again, I am compromising himself. Bro. Good arc. I enjoyed for waiters. Solid arc.
So here's what I'll say, right? As I wrapping up here, right? So yes, Marvel had the advantage, right? Civil War have the advantage of having, its preceding films build the characters up, right? So how Hawkeye moves, how Wanda and Black Widow and these characters move, right? They even introduced Black Panther and Spider-Man into the story, right? And they made them work, right? Especially Black Panther, right? Because remember, he's on this vengeance spree because, his father get killed and, seeing how these characters sort of will fight each other. And then him himself overhearing what happened and how Bucky was pretty much conditioned to kill Tony's parents in the first place. He was like, listen, I don't gonna let that anger consume me because that's not what my father would want of me. Yes, I am my own man. He pretty much kind of says that, just paraphrasing. I am not my father, but at the same time, I'm not gonna let this hate consume me because I am not just a warrior, I'm a king as well, right? So I don't want this guilt over me, right? That makes sense. I'm saying all this, right? Because even with the disadvantage that the DCEU had, right? With BVS being its second film and having to do extra world building and having to set up for Justice League and introduce Wonder Woman and introduce Batman and reestablish Superman, you still could have given me a better and more logical reason as to why they fought in the first place. Don't give me dream sequences. Don't give me Flash doing some Flashpoint weirdness. Don't give me I just investigating a bad vigilante because he branding people all of a sudden. Don't give him I need to grab a kryptonite to kill a man because, reasons. No. They could have justified the reason why they fought much, much better. And in this particular movie, even though there was tension building up between Steve and Tony for movies now, for them to go at each other almost to the intent of like killing each other, Dread, that was justified perfectly in this one movie, Dread. So I'm not saying that BVS didn't have an excuse, but at the same time, with a better script, we would have cared why Batman fought Superman, and even more so, why Superman died. And that's all I had to say. But yeah, this movie gets a decent 4.5 out of 5. One of the best MCU shows I've ever seen. I put this right up there with Winter Soldier. Yes, Winter Soldier is the better movie. That gets a 5 out of 5. But as a follow-up to that, and as a just 2.5, before we get, Infinity War Endgame, yeah, this movie absolutely works, right? It still holds up. The action works, the humor works, how they blend tones, because it's not just, dreary, drama and, darkness. No, but you get a lot of fun, you get a lot of action, you get a lot of tension as well. And last point I had to make too, I was reminded of how great of action filmmakers the Russo brothers are, because the action is fast, you feel it, just how tense everything is, right? It's not covered in darkness like pretty much every fight, every action sequence in BVS was right, or in CGI, dust and shadow, whatever it is, right? Like the scenes in the third act of BVS, right? But yeah, man, this is the better movie. It's just really interesting as I wrap things up, right? In retrospect, right? That both movies came out in the same year, right? Roughly a month and a half apart from each other, and Civil War just wash BVS too, and at the same time, it tells a kind of a similar story. It gives similar expectations, and those expectations were met compared to BVS. It's like chalk and cheese shit. Like you and both of them came out in the same year. No? That's why I did this in the first place, Chad. That's why I had to do this as a compare and a contrast.
I mean,
Chad. I mean, come on, man.
personally, I was just like, I just kind of don't really care to talk about BVS again, but like, whatever. I suppose a workable comparison because like, let's talk about Civil War. And
Yeah.
you see, I don't want to like shit on anything because like, yeah, people just try their best and the people involved were very talented and whatnot. But like, yeah, it's just a horribly misapplied, set of skills to me in terms of what was happening. And yeah, this movie don't work for me. Like, I know people who like it. Kind of, but I could never. When it's time to argue for it, they could never really argue for it in a meaningful way. So that's how I always felt about it.
Well, last point I'll make about BVS, and then you wrap up your talk about BVS, and then give your final thoughts and rating. Well, your 10-year retrospective review, rating of this film of Civil War, right? I think the reason why people defended BVS back then and probably still do is how it's dark, how it leans towards being dark, and especially as a Superman movie. But because you don't really get enough Superman in it, it just really feels like he is the side he's the side player to his own movie. It really more feels like a Batman movie. Because we all associate Batman with dark stuff, right? From the moment, like from Tim Burton's Batman, right?
That's a big complaint is that it's like this supposed to be a Superman movie.
So Superman is pretty much dumbed down and then worse off because he have to fit with Zack's worldview that if you are a do-gooder, you must be punished or you must get killed. So he have to go through this existential crisis and feel like, man, I must go and kill a superhero now. I guess there's no good in this world or whatever the fuck he said, right? Whatever it is, right? But the point is, he have to be like converted into the darkness now for him to fit in this movie. Like, but this is your movie, Dre. Like, come on, man, right? That's my last point. But yeah, you could say your last words on BVS, and then you could close things off with your rating on this movie, looking back at it now, 10 years from since it came out.
BVS again. BVS just as I was saying before, big missed opportunity. It's a damn shame. We could get something amazing. Like in my humble opinion, if they just had a better script and thing, they could have really matched the MCU, and they just didn't come close to doing that. So much so that they had to reboot the franchise, and there was all kind of extra bullshit happened that undermined the whole thing. So it's a shame. But it's unfortunate. As for Civil War, it mostly holds up. I thoroughly loved it. I remember enjoying it in theaters, watching it back on Disney Plus or whatever. Having a lot of fun with that, and they just make it work. Rating, still like a PGI score, like a 8 out of 10. It's a much less tighter film than say Winter Soldier, but like I enjoyed it in more ways. It's one of those trade-off things where it does more. It's not as tight and structured, but it does more because they needed to trade off the spectacle for it, and it mostly works. I thoroughly love this movie. I still consider it like my most hyped for the MCU. Not I wasn't even as hyped for Infinity War ones. So it's that. Good period to be in, and it's solid stuff.